Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Pod. Now, today was supposed to be our first episode where we actually have video, so you can put names to the faces. But just having a little bit of technical difficulty, I guess on my end, because I had like OBS set up and couldn't get my webcam running on OBS and on Discord, which we're using to talk to each other. And yeah, I could see that Caleb was getting impatient, and I know the man.
No, come on.
When this man gets
All
impatient,
patches in the world,
but especially after
this morning. Yeah, I'm feeling real patient, feeling in a really good mood after this morning.
especially after this morning, I didn't want to keep the man waiting, and I know that he is very eager to jump into the episode. However, Caleb, do you want to run this episode sort of like a fight night main event? So we keep Man United Liverpool to the end because it's the juiciest topic, or actually, considering the results, one of the juiciest topics. Or do you want to start with the big match? How do you want to do things?
I was fully expecting to start with the big one, but as you are lead, you take me where you want to go, and I'll just follow.
Well, since we're not running live, I guess it doesn't really matter where we start, and people can just skip to wherever we start talking about Liverpool, Man United, or Man United Liverpool, because we are so gracious that we even put timestamps in the description, so people can just skip to it anyway.
You are.
Well,
also shout out to our OBS and Discord if they want the sponsorship. If they want to sponsor us, just send the sponsorship package our way, and we'll keep shouting them out.
Anything that will improve the quality of the show. So, Caleb, how are you today?
I'm all right, all things considered. Look, I guess that means you want to start on the United Liverpool game after asking that question. That's what my guess is.
Yeah, look, let's start on it. I'll let you take the ball with it, but I will just mention that I know I predicted a 3-0 Liverpool win just because I was expecting Liverpool to be more fired up, and considering they have more within their DNA to, I guess, overcome the two demoralizing draws that they've had. I expected them to bounce back harder than United, and because they've done it before as well, and because they're a much more cohesive and experienced team. However, last night, so my missus, she works at a betting agency, and she said the coefficient for United to win, well, I think she said it was 5.1 or 5.7. So 5.7 to 1 for Man United to win. And when she told me that, I was like, those are juicy odds. And after hearing that, I'm like, I would not be surprised if there's somehow a result, considering all of the talk that's been about United this whole week and so on. And yeah, they managed to pull it out the bag, but I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Yeah, and I guess maybe you started all that talk with your prediction of a 3-0 Liverpool win, but I obviously wasn't going to make a prediction, so I didn't. But I did think Liverpool would dominate, and we'll get to Liverpool because I think it's more important that we start on United, to be quite honest. And we will get to Liverpool, so that's not me ducking the Liverpool issue. But United all of a sudden actually have some hope. Out of somewhat nowhere, this was almost the perfect fixture for them to have in this moment, but it also could have gone the other way. It could have been a terrible fixture for them to have. But yeah, they had this fixture. Tactically, it somewhat played into their hands as well. When you think about the fact that Martinez starts, look, I thought the first story is Maguire starting on the bench, isn't it? And I thought it was wrong to just drop Harry Maguire, but it was 100 Martinez and Maguire. If Martinez was going to play, he should have started somewhere else, not centre back. So either dropped or moved, but both of them should have been out because they were both atrocious. But this game, and Ten Hag saw it. This is going to be a sort of praise session for Ten Hag after this, even though I've been so critical of him. But he realised he stuck with his conviction, and I'm not surprised he did because obviously that's his guy. He brought him in from Ajax. He's the guy they spent all that money on. So it's not a surprise that he sticks with him and drops Maguire for me, even though Maguire's club captain. So you've got that decision there. But it was the right game for Martinez to play, and I listened to the Monday Night Football stuff afterwards, and they sort of echoed these sentiments that I had watching the game. I was just like, Darwin Núñez really screwed us last week, because if we had that guy, then all of a sudden the dimension changes and we can actually attack Martinez and we can attack that lack of height and we can put a physical presence on him. But without that guy and having Firmino, who wants to play in pockets, and having Salah, who didn't want to be dynamic tonight for whatever reason, it was just an easy game for him. There wasn't the physicality. Not easy, don't get me wrong. And he played exceptionally well, because while I've been dubious on him as a signing for a centre-back in the Premier League, I don't deny that he has some qualities. He is a good centre-back. He could be much like a Mascherano-type centre-back at Barcelona, but you need the right conditions for a centre-back like that. Today were the right conditions. There were players in front of him. There was no physical presence on him. So he could go and press, he could go and tackle, he could do the things he does well, rather than any sort of backtracking, any dealing with aerial crosses into the box. So that worked nicely for them there. So that's the first story you see. But then where the praise for Ten Hag comes in for me is that we actually saw a reaction from him that showed that he does know what this league is about. He obviously knows what Liverpool are about, and he is willing to go away from some of the principles you would associate with him when you think about Erik Ten Hag football. Because De Gea did not play one ball short all game. And moreover than that, he saw what these United teams under Mourinho and then under Solskjaer, what they had done in the past against Liverpool, and that's put Marcus Rashford in the channel between Trent and that other centre-back, and let's get at him. Because Trent cannot defend at all against Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford always kills Trent, especially at Old Trafford. And today was no different. But they saw that, so all of De Gea's long kicks were going into that channel. It didn't even matter if they were particularly accurate. As long as they were in that direction, United had a chance. And then, so they stopped playing out from the back. And they competed. They put in some effort into this game. They ran more. They worked harder than Liverpool. They beat them in all the individual battles. It wasn't about Ten Hag going out there and showing us his tactical systems and the way his teams want to play out from the back or anything like that. It was about his team going out there and winning their individual battles and wanting to compete. So the effect that he was able to have from the Brentford game to now, the willingness to adapt the tactics and play more towards De Gea's strengths, the acknowledgement to keep Martinez in the game and put Malacia in the game, because he's an athletic fullback, and Mo Salah has never had joy against athletic fullbacks. He wants to play against fullbacks who maybe defend a little bit better but are not as athletic, because then he can bully him. But Malacia was aggressive on him. He didn't let him. I think it was a little bit Mo as well. Mo, he scored his goal, so how terrible a performance was it? But there was a chance in the first half where he cut inside, and then he was faced with Christian Eriksen in front of him. And he didn't even want to take on Eriksen. So where's the dynamism? Where's the £450,000 going to if we're doing that? But before we get into Liverpool, I just wanted to acknowledge that those things that you saw from Ten Hag, and then you add in the fact that they maybe have the best defensive midfielder in the world coming into the squad, in Casemiro, who was sitting there watching the game. There was no massive signs of that huge protest. You didn't really see it at all. It wasn't a story. The crowd got behind the team. So United all of a sudden had this fixture that could have gone either way. It went the right way, and now they have some hope going forward.
I think you said it best in with the fact that like United actually showed, I guess, like an intensity and a hunger to win their individual battles, because I didn't actually recognize this United team. Like, had you have turned off the nameplates, I would have said United played more like Liverpool in terms of how they pressed your midfield and your defense for the first half hour at least. They were all over you like a rash, like a Rashford. But yeah, like they were actually unrecognizable. It was night and day between the performance that they put at Brentford. Like they seemed like a very galvanized squad, and I guess they gave the reaction that they were supposed to give. Liverpool probably came into the game thinking that they were going to be easy pushovers, because the whole week, like the whole week, like literally every single day, there was always a segment on like TalkSport or Sky or whatever about United, and talking about like their lack of what was it, like when they're faced against adversity, their lack of fight and their lack of desire, and they showed none of that. They actually showed desire, they showed fight, they showed tactically that they can get things right as well. Like you said, this was like the perfect game for Martinez. He wasn't targeted at all. So it would have been interesting had Nunez have played. But yeah, I was actually quite impressed, especially for the first half hour. After that, they probably, the game does change in flow. So like generally when teams attack for 15, 20 minutes, then they sit back a little and rest. And you guys had a little bit more. I think you guys were allowed a little bit more possession in the last 15 minutes of the first half. But in the second half, it sort of continued again, where United were trying to get back on top of you. But full credit to United for how they for the performance that they put in. And you know what, like this whole like I saw comments from Klopp like during the week. Like he went in on Gabby Abong-Lahore, saying like, because in this sense he was defending United, because I think Gabby said something like, then again everyone said something about United's lack of desire and their mental weakness, I suppose, after the 4-0 Brentford defeat. And then he went in on Gabby like by mentioning a 6-0 defeat that he had at the hands of Liverpool, which people like got in on. And then he also mentioned that if anything happens with these protests, that Liverpool should automatically get the points. So it seemed like he was facing a little bit of pressure, or at least if the result wasn't going to go his way, like he was sort of like setting up excuses or something as well. Like it seemed that way in the build up to the game. And I'm saying this as an outsider. Like you obviously listen to Klopp a lot more, and like you probably listen to his interviews a lot more than what I do. So maybe he does this in every interview. But yeah, like he wasn't framing this very well, and it seemed like he was under pressure for a result, especially after the two draws, the first two match weeks. So I'll let you take the ball on Liverpool and their performance.
Well, I don't know if Klopp should feel any pressure as a Liverpool manager right now, because he has the grace of a long time for what he's given the club. So let's get that straight. But I think with a comment like that, you're thinking more, I don't know how the question was framed or anything, but I would have thought it would have had something. I would have thought it would have had something to do with the fact that last time there was a protest before a Liverpool United game at Old Trafford, the match got abandoned. So I think Klopp wanted to avoid that happening again. And if that was going to happen again, then, Liverpool probably should get the points in that fact. But like that, things like that can't be happening. I remember trying to tune in and watch that game and then seeing there's no one in the stands, there's no game going ahead. It's like, well, what's going on? How's this happening in the Premier League? Well, but yeah, so that's like a little bit of defense there. But I think the way I wanted to transition from United to Liverpool is by talking about the managers, and I've already heaped the praise on Ten Hag for what I saw in terms of the adjustments he made from the last game into this game. It'll be interesting because he reiterated the point after the game, Ten Hag, the fact that they need to keep doing this. They need to do it against other clubs that aren't Liverpool, when you don't have that big push forward because you're playing your rival at home. Maybe the other team let them have the ball. It's a totally different kind of game. You're playing against a physical striker. So we need to see this continued and how it translates into other games in the Premier League. Because while I say they have hope, we can't forget the first two games that happened, and they were absolute abominations. So let's see how they react after this. But transitioning to Liverpool, and I want to talk about this it's like a concept I've been thinking of ever since I was asking what has Ten Hag been doing over the summer in terms of having to punish the players after the Brentford game for a lack of desire. Well, it's like this invisible work versus visible work. So now in this game we saw visible work from Ten Hag. What message did he get across to the players? Like, another thing I didn't mention, the body language, the camaraderie between the United players was really good in the game. They were talking to each other. They were saying well done for tackles. They were saying well done for closing down properly, winning fouls. So the body language completely shifted. You saw that. You saw the tactical adjustments, or non-adjustments as it is with Martinez. But then with Liverpool, and it might be harsh to say because they are missing a lot of players through injury, but what wrinkles has Klopp put into the team since last season? For me, the squad has not been freshened up nearly adequately. How could you come into the next season and have no sort of tactical developments, no wrinkles that you can throw in? Like City, this season they come out against West Ham, their fullbacks are tucked right in. Guardiola throws some other wrinkle in because he knows that now all the Premier League teams have been watching him last season. He knows what they do, and he knows that that's the champions. That's a prize scalp for every team in the Premier League now. How could Liverpool, who are sitting nearly at the top of the crown, they're right at that level last season, and then they don't come back the next season with some sort of tactical adjustment? Even last season, Klopp throws in, all right, Trent will now underlap a bit more, and he'll play as a number 10 when he makes that movement. Okay, great. There's something else that teams need to think about. When I watch this Liverpool team, they're playing exactly the same way as last season, but players are not playing nearly to their level. So we look at, and the first two, and we mentioned in the Fulham game, Van Dijk and Alisson. Van Dijk and Alisson the whole team is built on them. And if they're making mistakes, or if they're not doing as much as is expected to stop goals, then Liverpool are in big trouble. And that first goal is atrocious. It's atrocious from both of them. It's atrocious from Milner as well. He throws himself stupidly. But then after that, Van Dijk doesn't react. And Alisson's already dived the wrong way, and the shot hasn't even come in. I mean, it's really bad work. And when you play so open and you're relying on those two players in particular to not make mistakes, and now it's you can see like what can you do for that one? I don't know. Maybe if you want to be hypercritical, maybe you sign a different player. But I think that's too critical so far because we saw good sides before that. But when players are making mistakes, but then you haven't like given them another opportunity to arm themselves with different types of football for different situations. And my thinking is, and I don't want to overreact because we're 3 games into the season. A lot of big teams drop points this weekend as well. So, look, I don't want to overreact, so I'm not going to say this is happening, but I am worried that Liverpool's engine is broken. And I'm worried that this season there's not going to be nearly the heights of last season. I'm just worried there's going to be a big fall off. And the thing that gives me more cause for concern is the history of Jurgen Klopp's Borussia Dortmund team, because they were traveling fine, second. Every season they go in odds on to finish second behind Pep's Bayern, obviously, or that. I might be getting my timelines wrong, but but they're going in second behind the Bayern teams of the time. And then all of a sudden, in his last season, they finished seventh out of nowhere. Now, I'm not saying Liverpool are going to finish seventh, but there has been a history. And what could that history be attributed to? Well, my early theory is Klopp absolutely maximizes his players. He gets them at 100%, as close to 100% of the time as he can. Whereas you look at maybe a City, they bring in a profile of footballer who is like an extraordinary footballer. So even if they're not playing to their maximum, they scare you from their footballing ability. Now Liverpool have sort of transitioned to buy really good players now, but a lot of Liverpool players, Klopp, they're like workhorses. Like you look at an Andy Robertson, bought him from Hull, 8 million. What did you expect from him when he came into the team? Like you didn't expect him to become one of the best left backs in the world. So he's been maximized. He's been playing at his max for the last seasons. You look at even a Trent comes from the youth academy. I mean, when you look at players like that Klopp's been absolutely maxing to 100% of their ability for big portions of the season. It's like I use the engine analogy because they're revving the engine up so high, right into the reds all the time, and they just go. And then all of a sudden, you've been going so fast for so long, it's got to stop eventually. You'll run out of fuel or the engine will break. So I'm not ready to say that yet, but I am ready to say that I'm worried about that.
I think you're onto something there. Like it does seem like that those Klopp teams do have that burnout. And I guess when you're playing at that high intensity with the same players for so long, it's only bound to happen. Like your starting 11 has been pretty much the same for the past 2 or 3 years. Like you've had the addition of Luis Diaz in the last 6 months. Mane left. Nunez is out, and so you have Firmino. So like you look at your starting 11 from last night. Who was you had Harvey Elliott, Henderson, and Milner in the midfield.
Yeah, and I don't need to say this, but the midfield was
it was atrocious.
It was so bad.
Why didn't Fabinho play? Is he coming back from injury or something? Because he only played the last half an hour or something when you guys were already 2-0 down.
Well, he played last week, and if he's not injured, and I didn't do the dive into it, but I could only think Klopp wasn't happy with his mistake for the goal against Palace because he went charging in and then didn't commit a foul, didn't win the ball against, I think it was Eze after the clearance, and then Palace got out for the goal. So that's what and Henderson's done. Well, maybe that's Klopp's sort of thinking that this will be an easier game because he likes to favour Henderson when he thinks Liverpool are going to have control on the game, and so Henderson can maybe offer more mobility and more with the ball. But I thought there's no need for me to say it, but looking back, that was the wrong decision because Henderson was this is the worst indictment of the midfield. Henderson was our best midfielder today, and he was poor.
Your whole team was poor, pretty much. Like you said before, like Salah. I think I remember that moment. Like he cut in onto his left foot, but then instead of like taking the shot or like trying to take on, you said Eric. I think it was Ericsson. Like I think like he just passed it on to Trent, who was overlapping for a cross.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Salah before AFCON would have smashed that one into the goal, or at least, or had a shot at goal at least. Like he would have had the confidence to just curl that one to the far post. Like Iron Robin style. But he went for the pass instead of the shot. Like that was for me. Once I saw that, I was like, wow, this guy has very little confidence at the moment. And I told, like, I was speaking to our regular guest Matthias, and I told him, like, your whole, like, he was saying, like, oh, Salah's been our best player. I'm like, even he's been poor. Like okay, your whole teams are like 4s or 3s. Salah's probably like a 5 or a 6. Like he hasn't been a 7 or 8 or a 9 out of 10 performance. Like, and I guess you probably only give him a 5 or a 6 because he got that goal, which was actually pretty fortunate because it deflected off of Martinez. So he shot it into Martinez and it deflected off his shin or his thigh, which diverted the ball away from De Gea. But other than that, he didn't even really offer any threat either. Usually he offers threat where like he drags 2 or 3 players out of position, and then can open up space for his other teammates. He hasn't even been doing that really, which just shows that. And I told Matthias, like, you guys offered the contract to the wrong African, it seems. Like
Okay, that was my next theory, but it wasn't. My next theory wasn't even related to Mane per se, because to some degree you can agree or disagree with that comment. I mean, I don't know. Mo Salah's still a fantastic player, and I'm not ready to jump off that ship yet. But
all I'm saying is being out of form.
Sadio Mane's a fantastic player, and if you were to. So the season is, 38 games. Yeah. So if you divide that by 12 like boxing rounds, it's every 3 point whatever games. So we're at the end of a round. Mm-hmm. And look, the only reason this is only a 10-9 round to Mane is because Salah scored the goal today. If Salah hadn't scored, I would have said this is a 10-8 round for Mane so far. Because Mane has been killing it for Bayern in the Bundesliga. So right now, that statement is true, that maybe we gave the wrong guy the contract. But as well, what I'm thinking, and obviously this is a very early stage theory, but the worry that I've got for this Liverpool team has taken my head into sort of dark places. But they give Salah the £450,000 contract. But as stated last season, or as I stated and theorized, this team is, and as you can witness with your own eyes, this team isn't so much built on what they do going forward, because everyone joins in going forward. It's built on the defense. It's built on Van Dijk and Alisson being absolutely exceptional. So do they, consciously or subconsciously, I would never say consciously to be fair, because these guys look like good teammates, but do they subconsciously look at that and think, we're doing, like, Mo Salah scores a lot of goals, but we're doing as much work as that guy towards this team's success, and we're getting paid half or less than half what he's getting paid? Does that drop you 0.5%, 1%? And is that what we're seeing? I don't know. That's just an interesting question when they look at the contracts as well now. And when Mo Salah's not playing well, that might get accentuated. Now, I don't want to cast that onto their characters, because I think they've been exceptional for Liverpool, and I think they're good teammates. But that's just a little theory I have as well.
Yeah.
In addition to the sort of the engine theory and the mechanic not, changing the way the engine runs when it's missing parts. Because we're missing players, but Klopp will play the same. We saw it in the 2021 season. He's not going to change a thing. It doesn't matter who's on the pitch. They're going to play the same way every game.
Just on the whole contract thing, like, it could be a thing, because I said this before, like, if you're going to give Salah, did you say he's on 450 a week?
350, I think it was.
350.
Sorry.
And like, and if then, Who's the next highest? I'm guessing Van Dijk on like 200 or
Yeah, I think it's like 220 or something.
220. Like when you have such a big discrepancy, and considering Van Dijk is, would you say he's the best centre back in the world? And you have
Not on form. Not on form.
Yeah, look, it's
going into the season, yes. Yeah, he will one A or one B. I do really rate Marquinhos as well.
Yeah, so to have such a big discrepancy between probably like one of the best attacking players and then the best or the second best defender in the world, you know, it could play a part. And because there's such a big discrepancy between the rest of the squad, who's probably on 200 and less, it could potentially cause some divides or rifts, but nothing that like maybe subconsciously. You know, like if you're gonna give Salah that big a contract, you need to give the rest of the team, because they were just as integral to the team's success. Because you know, it's not, Salah's not at Ronaldo or Messi's level, so like their contracts you can justify. Maybe not Ronaldo's at United, but Ronaldo's at Real Madrid, you can justify him being the top earner, or Messi at Barca, you can justify him being the top earner. But this, I think there needs the pay levels need to be a little bit more equal, because the way that Klopp's team is set up and the way that it plays, every player plays at 100%. Like, yeah, you're going to have some players that are banging in 20 or 30 goals a season, but look at Alisson and Van Dijk's performance. Like I said, this is the best goalkeeper or the second best goalkeeper in the world and the best centre back in the world. And then you have Trent, who's been probably one of the best right backs in the world, and Robertson, one of the best left backs in the world as well.
Trent gets paid well. So make no mistake. Trent, the only way I'm going to say Trent would be worth more than what he gets paid at the moment, which I think is like 160,000 a week, is if he could become an actual fucking defender. If he could actually at least competently defend. Like, I get it. You give us so much going forward. Your range of passing is fantastic. But, like, how hard is it to defend a little bit? It's effort and it's concentration. I'm not asking you to, like, learn how to play the violin perfectly or something like that. I'm asking you just concentrate and put a little bit of effort into your defensive work. That's it. Just know your positioning, know what's around you, and know if the ball breaks down, what's going to come of it, and be aware of that. He's just unaware. And it's been seasons of this. Like, if he wants to go to the next level, he needs to demonstrate an ability to at least defend to some level.
Well, is this where what we talked about in the past, where Klopp should maybe look at putting Van Dijk on that right-hand side so that he can be in his ear?
Yeah.
Or play
and
with
it was finally mentioned.
Or play with a back three. Or play with a back three and give a little bit less responsibility defensively to Trent.
Yeah, and of course that goes into the mechanic point where we're going to play the same way no matter what. Like, and these players, for as awesome as Klopp is, and he is truly awesome, don't get me wrong. But this is the thing that I've always had gripe with him about. And he doesn't arm his players with different, and he doesn't arm his teams with different ways of playing and different, can they change mid-game? I mean, he's had this group of players for so long. Like, why have we not evolved to at least trying that and trying to be at that level and look into, can we get our team to change on the fly? Can we give our players different solutions for different problems? Can we adjust the balance of the starting 11 a little bit when we're struggling with this or that? And they never do. And they're a bit of a one-trick pony. And when that trick has been as fantastic as it has for the years, then it doesn't really matter because it's really hard to beat. But when you fall off just that fraction of a percent at this level and you can't perform that trick anymore and you have no other tricks, I don't know, you're in a bit of trouble.
It's what we've also said. Like, yeah, like he doesn't have that. I wouldn't say he's tactically inept, but like you see Guardiola, his teams can play 3-4-3. 3-5, what, 2? Yeah, my maths is right there. And like 4-3-3, they can play all these different systems, and they can be very good at them. But like Klopp always seems to play 4-3-3. He doesn't set up his teams in differently at all. So, but then the thing is, like, you have to ask yourself why. Like, why doesn't he do that? Like, is it just because he's stubborn, or what?
I can't answer that one. You'd have to ask him, because I would love it explained.
He's like one of the best coaches in the world. Like he's obviously aware of this, but like, is it?
Well,
I don't know. Like, does he just want to absolutely perfect the one system? And like, he maybe thinks right now it's at like over the years it's been at 99% efficiency, and like he wants to get that extra 1% to get it at 100, or what? Like, I just don't get it.
To be fair, his Dortmund team didn't play like this. They played a 4-2-3-1 most of the time. So, and it's Jurgen Klopp. We're talking about one of the best managers in the world and one of the best of this generation. He knows his tactics.
Yeah, and
like I'm very sure he does. Yeah. But that is the big question. Why has there been such a lack of flexibility, even for that little change you mentioned, just putting Van Dijk on the right side of the centre-back partnership, which I think one of the commentators or one of the analysts or someone finally mentioned it the other day.
I think I heard someone mention it as well. It was either Kara or someone like that.
I'm like, I've been on that one for years now.
It was Darren Bent. It was Darren Bent on TalkSport, I remember, yeah.
Well, the first time that Rashford destroyed us under Mourinho in that channel, I was just thinking, put Van Dijk in that bit. Just put him on the right side so he can help Trent. But I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't know why he can't adapt at all.
Well, we talked about it like months ago, and like I think I said like the only logical reason that I can think of it. Well, there's two reasons. Either Van Dijk is uncomfortable playing on that side. I know he's right-footed, so I don't know why he wouldn't want to play on that side. But either he's uncomfortable playing on that side, or Robertson actually needs more cover than what we think. Those are the only two reasons that I can think of.
Yeah, we litigated that. I still, for my eye, I think Robbo's a better defender, but you can't tell this season. Well, maybe because Trent's been so bad defending this season, you still can say that.
Well, Robertson got exposed against Saka last season. I think in at least 2 games that they had, like he got exposed. So
when are you going to get over that? What was it? The Carabao Cup.
All I'm saying with that comment is, and that sort of goes along with my theory, I suppose, that Robbo needs more backup than Trent.
Oh, Bukayo Saka is a pretty damn good player, so if he gets the better of you one night, it's not like you're a terrible fullback.
Yeah, but I think I'm pretty sure it happened in 2 games, and that's all I'm saying is we've seen Trent be targeted so many times, and that's because I guess Van Dijk isn't on that side. But because we've seen Robbo be targeted way less because Van Dijk is on that side, then yeah, teams obviously, they focus on that right hand side. But if Van Dijk was switched over to the right side to help Trent out, you'd probably see the exact same thing happening to Robbo on the left side. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think I still think you'd have less success if that was the case, because I trust Robertson's defensive abilities and defensive effort more than I trust Trent's. And that's why teams keep targeting Trent's side. It's partly because of the Van Dijk reason, but it's also because Trent has shown himself not to be a very good defender. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have anything to add on Liverpool, but I feel like the time we've spent has been disproportionate because we only spent a little bit of time on United, and they have hope and they're quite good now, or they're looking like they have something. Especially, the other thing that I wanted to touch on is more a bigger picture thing, is the Casemiro transfer. I still can't believe it. For me, that may have flipped the odds for the whole Champions League this season in terms of, I don't know if I can put Real Madrid in that top tier anymore. I need to see them without Casemiro, but he was easily their best defender last season. And United now, I know he's not a defender, but in terms of what his role in the team is, his role is to defend. Now United have a world-class defender in their defensive unit. So that's a great signing. That's another one that could go, I don't know how much input Ten Hag had into that, but it's another one that could go into him showing his adaptability, because he's not a Ten Hag profile player that you would associate when you think of Ten Hag. So maybe that's another good point for Ten Hag. Well, in terms of, in my books anyway, in the adaptability. But in the bigger picture, Real Madrid, I can't believe they've let him go, because while I really rate Tchouaméni, he's a kid. When we get to quarterfinals, semi-finals of the Champions League, any mistake gets penalised. I don't know. Like, you don't have Casemiro anymore? I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge loss to them. And yeah, I think, was it last week or the week before we were saying that, like, Real Madrid could once again win the Champions League. Like, now they're losing one of their biggest defensive units and one of their biggest integral parts of that midfield. Yeah, that's a huge blow for them. However, it's similar to the Mane one, where he's in his last year of his contract and you get offered 60 mil for a player that has 1 year left. Like, you can't...
And he's getting double wages as well, I hear.
Yeah. So, and like, yeah, United have doubled his wages, what he was getting at Real Madrid. But it's, yeah, like, what... Did Liverpool get 40 mil from, or 45 mil from Bayern, and he was in his last year of his contract?
Yeah, I think it was like euros.
Yeah, so like,
40 million
yeah,
euros.
you're pretty much forced to have to accept that because it's such a good deal. Whereas, like, if you had 2 years left, it's like, well, no, you're gonna have to pay like 70 or 80 if he has 2 years left. And United, considering that the crap that they are in, and because it's sort of like a United, it's not only an English tax. You know how English teams generally pay 5 or 10% more for a player. It's also a United tax as well. Like, so you add like another 10%. So like, to another team, like if Casemiro went to, say, Bayern probably could have got him for 40 or 50. Or Juventus or something. They could have got him for that much.
Perhaps, but I don't see how the United tax would factor into that situation where we're talking about last year of the contract.
But I think it's also the desperation of United at the moment as well. Like,
well, they picked the right player to be desperate on.
Yeah,
because if anyone's got a chance of helping them defensively, it's that guy.
And they've been needing a world-class defensive mid for quite a while now as well.
Yeah.
So.
And it's an interesting one, because I just want to touch on this before I guess we get to other games. But you bring out the contrast between the Casemiro and the Mane, or the comparison between them, their transfers in the summer. If you're Real Madrid and if you're Liverpool, the two teams that made the Champions League final the year before, is there a little part of you that's tempted to just let them walk on a free at the end of the season, run it back and try and win the Champions League either again or go one step further than you went last season? Because for me, I think that temptation would be great, because we've shown you how good we are with this team. In Real Madrid's case, we've won the Champions League with this guy as one of the pivotal parts. In Liverpool's case, we've played every single game of the season, and this guy was our main attacker in the run-in. Is there just a part of you that says, all right, well, we're that good. Let's just try and win everything again. Let's try and win the big trophies, and we'll make that money back by winning things. I don't know. I would maybe like to see a mentality like that from clubs when it comes to that. Can we just run it back and make up whatever transfer fee we would have got by winning the trophy that's on offer? I know it's risky, But that's football's there to be. When you're at that level, you're trying to win trophies. You're trying to do everything you can to win the trophies. And
Well,
if you're letting players like that walk, for me, you're not quite doing everything you can to win the trophies. But I get you have an obligation to get the best deal possible and whatever. It's a business at the end of the day as well.
I guess it's just weighing up the odds as well. Like for instance, with Real, everyone was writing them off because didn't they lose to like Sheriff or something in the opening game of the group stages? And like they didn't really have a good group stage. I think they lost. Did they lose 2 games or just the one? But they drew as well.
We did. I think I mentioned last season at some point in their run-in that after the group stages they were something like the 8th favourites or maybe less. They were behind teams like Ajax, and I think they were around level with teams like United and stuff. So yeah, they were quite written off to win it all.
Yeah, and you know I guess they're trying to also. I'm not sure what their debt is. It's obviously nothing compared to Barcelona's, but they obviously need to balance their books and whatnot. Because I think the way that the clubs work over in Spain is that they get most of their funding actually from the fans and like memberships, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe that's just Barcelona the way theirs work because their TV deals aren't as lucrative as Premier League. So, you know, getting 60 mil for a player that's 1 year left on his contract. And as for Liverpool, I don't know, as well, getting 40 mil for Mane with 1 year left, I think that's... I don't know, if he's outright refusing to sign a new deal, you also have to take into consideration that fact that a player doesn't want to stay at the club anymore as well. So how much more can you get out of him when he doesn't want to stay at the club anymore? There's also that factor.
Yeah, the human side, and that's something we're not privy to with like what the mood around the relationship between the player and the club is. But it's just I just wanted to bring that up because if the mood was good, then my inkling would be, well, let's run it back and let's try and win the Champions League either again or let's win it.
Yeah, so in conclusion with this topic, all credit to United. The next thing I want to see is them put in the same type of not like the same type of performance where they take a little bit more of a defensive approach and play on the counter, but the same type of performance in terms of the way how much run they have, how much desire and hunger they have to actually win against. I'm pretty sure they're playing against Southampton next, so against pretty much a bottom of the league team. If they can't back it up against a bottom of the league team and they draw, then they can only get up for the big games. And
well, it depends. It depends how they draw. If they put in at least the same effort and they just can't break through because they lack quality, at least they put in the same effort. But what they showed against Brighton and Brentford, they can't do again. Otherwise, we're back to square one.
Yeah. Well, I talked about it last week or on last pod. They got the early kickoff, the early Saturday kickoff. So yeah, they can have fun with that. But yeah, let's move on. Like, I really want to talk about my team, but do you want to talk about Tottenham at all before we get onto Arsenal?
Oh, I had a little bit, but I don't mind which order you go in. We can do the day in reverse. Start with the late kickoff and then go on to just. I didn't have that much to say about Tottenham, but just a little bit.
Or we can go. Well, we'll go with Tottenham then, because it almost. My prediction almost came right. Well, actually, my prediction was right in the sense that it was a little bit of a slow and lackluster game because it was a early kickoff, and it ended up being 1-0 for Tottenham. I think I predicted 1-1. I don't know. I didn't really see anything from Tottenham. I thought Wolves actually played better for the most part, at least for the first half, and it was relatively even for most of the game. I don't know what you
Oh,
thought.
I think you're being generous to Tottenham by saying that it was even. I thought Wolves, especially in the first half, were much the better team.
They
Their
were.
midfield absolute their midfield absolutely bossed Tottenham's, and we saw that against Chelsea as well. And I'm starting to get a little worried for Tottenham's midfield because it's just not it's decent. It's just not very good. Bentancur, I think, is a decent player, but if you're going to play Bentancur, surely you can play someone a little bit more, I don't know, creative. Surely you could have looked at signing someone like that in the summer instead of a Højbjerg next to him.
And before
But
before
that
you
midfield,
continue,
yeah,
and
go on.
hopefully you don't lose your train of thought, but like I wanted to say on the last pod, but for whatever reason, whenever we talk about you said Højbjerg,
Yeah,
I always think of Futurama and Zoidberg. I don't know what it is, but I always think of Zoidberg. Maybe it's because of the Berg, but yeah, just like
they got him in midfield in his lab coat.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's good.
I think I'm just gonna start calling him Zoidberg from now on.
I can see why you said, I hope you don't lose your train of thought, because you just throw that one from nowhere.
Yeah, my bad. Anyway, you can continue now. I wanted to get it out in the last pod, but like, yeah,
No, that's good.
yeah.
But when I'm looking at the midfield, I'm thinking, wow, how good would it be if you could put Bentancur next to the guy you had to play against on the weekend in Ruben Neves? Because I have no idea how Ruben Neves is still at Wolves. I think he's shown it for long enough that he can perform in the Premier League, and I think he could. United could use a player like that. Tottenham could use a player like that. Liverpool could use a player like that. I thought he was fantastic, especially in the first half. His ability, and this for me is the highest of high praise. But he kind of reminded me in aspects a little bit of a Xabi Alonso, in terms of he can organize the team around him. He's actually quite physical, and he's good out of possession. He's not he's not lightweight like you see a Jorginho, who's a pure ball playing deep lying midfielder. Neves can give you a bit of both. He can give you something out of possession. He can be solid. Like I said, he can organise. His range of passing's fantastic. Obviously, you don't want to give him anything on that right foot at the edge of the box. He's got good set pieces. I just think he's somewhat of a complete midfielder, and I don't know how old he is. I think he's still pretty. He must be reaching his prime because he burst on the scene with Porto really young, like 17, 18. But he's a midfielder I'm always impressed by. I think him and Moutinho work fantastically well as a two in there. Wolves impressed me because I remember saying in like the sort of preview to this game that I saw their formation for one of their earlier games. I think it was against Leeds, and said they were playing a four at the back, and I was worried. But in this game, it showed that he was sticking to the three at the back, and I thought they looked really good. But lacked a bit of cutting edge, obviously, because they never had a presence in the box. But again, Harry Kane pops up with a goal. Wolves lose concentration on a set piece, and Tottenham get an ugly win that we walk away and we think, damn, Tottenham was unimpressive, but won again.
Yeah, see, they seem to be getting the results without playing well, and yeah, once they do actually click and start playing well, then that's it could start. They could go on a run as well. So that's as an Arsenal fan, it's a little bit worrying, but who knows whether they can click. And just before you go on, like you mentioned that Tottenham are lacking a creative mid or someone like that. Like they had a chance to sign Eriksen if they wanted him back. They had a chance. I think they were in talks to possibly sign him.
Yeah, Eriksen's a dangerous one when you're playing a 3-4-3 because then you only have two central midfielders, and Eriksen's lack of physicality really worries me, even though he's creative. But he probably, maybe he wanted more game time and he figured United would be a better choice for that because I don't think and I think he worked with Conte at Inter as well, and Conte didn't fancy him at Inter that much either. So I think there was probably a lot of factors that went into that decision. But when I look at Tottenham, just the last point before we move away from Tottenham, you could argue that I would take their forward line over. The only one that would come into question with would probably be City at the moment. Like, which forward line do you take? Do you want City's or Tottenham's? But the rest of the team for Tottenham is maybe the worst in the top 5, and I exclude United, even though maybe United should make it a top 6 again. But in that case, maybe Tottenham aren't the worst rest of team, like midfield and defence. But I think Tottenham's midfield and defence is bang average, but that front line is pretty scary. So will it cancel it out? Will it be enough to finish top 4? I think they need to start playing better, but they're getting results without playing well, so that could be a good sign as well.
Yeah, let's see how they carry on. And they've already faced, and like we talked about last week when they faced Chelsea, they were, in my eyes, they were very fortunate to come away with a result from there. Like that should have been a loss. Like there's no two ways about it. Like they pulled a Houdini pretty much, especially considering they scored in the 94th or the 95th minute, like the last kick of the game almost. So it'll be interesting once they come up against like a City or even an Arsenal, if Arsenal continue playing the way they've started, and also Liverpool. But they're sort of like, if they repeat what they did last season, they could end up being like a bogey team for City and Liverpool, because they beat City twice and they drew with Liverpool twice. So they went unbeaten against the top 2 teams last year. So who knows if Conte can.
Conte loves those situations.
Yeah, he seems to
stifle.
Yeah, he seems to love like being that sort of underdog, and yeah. I guess that's sort of his style, to set up a little bit more defensively. And considering he has Kane and Son to play on the counter with, he has the tools to punish teams that want to play, more aggressively and with more possession. So, let's get on to Arsenal. I believe that they were very impressive. Like, extremely, extremely impressive. Especially their first half. They kept Bournemouth to 0 shots on goal, obviously zero shots on target. And they're doing what they should be doing, where they're putting these lower level teams to the sword, and they're putting them to the sword early as well. And they're actually being dominant in these games, which is something that they weren't doing. They sort of were doing it last year. I think their results against the lower table teams were actually very good, but it was against the mid-table and higher table teams that they couldn't get the results. But they're actually doing it now without looking like they're struggling as well. And while I was watching the game, I was just thinking the whole time, like the way that they're moving the ball around, the way that they're making their runs, they seem very fluid. Last season, especially when our centre-backs would get the ball, there would be almost like a 3 or 4 second delay between them getting the ball, looking up, and finding where the ball should go next. It almost seems now like it's natural instinct of where the ball needs to be played next. When a certain player has the ball, they know that another player is going to be in a certain position and so on. And I got to say, like as I know, and I know it's against Bournemouth and all that, but they're looking very impressive. The challenge or the test will be in a couple of weeks' time when they come up against, I think, United is their first big game, to see whether they can replicate these performances against the mid-table and lower table teams against the top 6. So yeah, I got a grin from one side of the face to the other, based on how things are going at Arsenal at the moment. And all I can say is that for now, it seems like the trust and faith in Arteta is beginning to pay off. Hopefully when they do face adversity or when they do face their first disappointing draw or loss, that they can bounce back straight away within a game, maximum 2 games. Because if it does go for a 3 or 4 game run of losses or draws, that's when it gets more and more difficult. And considering this is such a young team, we'll need to see how they go against that. But they've shown at least last year that they can do it, because they had the 3 losses against Crystal Palace, Southampton, I think it was Southampton, and Brighton, and then they bounced back against Chelsea, United, and West Ham. So yeah, I'm gotta say I'm happy for this, and yeah, I'll hand it to you as an outsider.
Well, you should be happy. What a difference 12 months makes. Like this time last season, you had one of the worst starts to a season in probably Arsenal history, and there was no hope. And then this season, you're top of the league, 3 wins from 3. And like you say, playing dominantly. I'm glad you added that. I know it's Bournemouth, because I thought Bournemouth were pretty abject, is a nice way of putting it. They were very poor in this game. They didn't. They gave you fullbacks way too much space, which is the point I wanted to make about that. Maybe could be why we're seeing Arsenal be able to play better from the back, is now they have 2 ball-playing fullbacks playing in those positions, rather than Tomiyasu and Tierney, who are more runners, which they're good at in their own rights. They're good fullbacks in their own rights, but these 2 in Ben White and Zinchenko are more fixed. So once you advance the ball to what now, with the addition of Jesus, is a threatening front 3, his role in the first goal being able to take on 2 or 3 players, which is so important when you play against a 5 at the back. Being able to beat a man and take a player out of the game is how you open up space against a system like that. So being able to have a threatening front 3 in him, Martinelli and Saka, means that now teams have to be more wary of that. So now Ben White and Zinchenko have more time on the ball. They can deliver the ball forward, but they can be fixed in their position to contain the ball in those forward areas and not let a team out. And you reference that stat about Bournemouth in the first half. Well, I think that's a huge reason why. I also think Bournemouth gave Zinchenko and Ben White way too much space to play and to do whatever they liked, really, which I found quite ridiculous. A tactic, especially at home, where you expect them to maybe give it a little bit more. I know in the preview you mentioned the result away at City for Bournemouth, which might have scarred them into taking this more defensive route. But once you can see those 2 goals in the opening, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was, the game's pretty much over. And the way Arsenal are looking at the moment, they're playing dominantly. They're putting these teams away, as you say, and I'm glad you also elaborated on when they hit adversity point, because I think that was the only new sort of thing that I was going to add to Arsenal is what happens. I'm still worried about the perceived lack of leadership in the squad. We can't say it's a lack of leadership. Maybe they've got leaders who haven't proved it yet. But when I look at your team and you've got Martin Ødegaard as captain, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but is he the kind of guy that you traditionally sort of associate to being a leader in those tough times? Maybe he'll show himself to be that leader, but as of now, it's unproven at best. So that's the only concern when the season becomes, when and if, I've got to say, because like we mentioned on the last pod, or 2 pods ago, we got the wrinkle of the World Cup in the middle of a season. So what kind of effect does that have in terms of the season becoming a grind, or does it refresh everyone and bring them back ready to go? So that'll be an interesting little thing to see as well. But if and when the season does become a grind and then you hit that adversity, who are the leaders in the team and in the squad that get you through those moments? That's just the little plot that I'm looking for at Arsenal, because footballing wise, I think Arteta's done fantastically well to put players in roles that suit them, so that they can thrive. And they're showing it in the first 3 games because they've been very good.
Yeah, so onward and upward with Arsenal, but yeah, like at the moment, I think they're playing the most exciting football. We're obviously going to get onto the City game, but like I said, in terms of they seem to be very very fluid, and they're moving the ball around a lot quicker than what they were last season. And I guess playing the starting 11 is pretty much unchanged. Like the only two new additions were Jesus and Zinchenko, and considering that Arteta already worked with both of them, and I guess you can say Arsenal play a similar style to City. They've slotted right in. Like they haven't needed any time to adjust. So they don't need to adjust to the Premier League, and they don't need to adjust to the team or the language, which is fantastic for them. And they've hit the ground absolutely running with those 2 signings. But I've mentioned it before. We need a backup to Partey because he's showing how important he is, and we also need a backup to Jesus, and Jesus is already showing that he's pretty much undroppable at the moment. He's probably the best striker in the league. Maybe not in terms, I guess it's only 3 games and he's scored 2 goals, but in everything else that he offers, if anything happens to him, and considering the amount of football that he's going to play this year, because he's probably going to be the starter for Brazil, I can't think of who else the number 9 would be for Brazil. So he's probably going to be starting every game for them at the World Cup. It's going to be extremely important to keep him fit and sharp. So
don't worry about that, mate. You got my mate Eddie Nketiah on the bench, number 14, Arsenal legend. Come on, what are we talking about? But he'll solve any problems that we have Jesus-wise.
But look, Eddie at the end of last season showed that I believe he showed that he deserves a new contract. I think it only got bumped up to 100 or 120, and it was probably on 50 or something. So it's not like it got bumped up to 200 or 250. You obviously had a gripe about.
So we're not talking about Marcus Rashford. Oh, we can't talk about Marcus Rashford because he played so well today.
Yeah, but it's only one game. But considering the
120 for Eddie Nketiah, what's the world come to?
Well, he's only 23. I already said last week he is the under 21 or the under 23 England all-time goal scorer. So he's still young. He has time to develop. Obviously, there's hang on, just before you go on. There's obviously players that are ahead of the development curve, for instance, Martinelli and also Saka. But let's see how he goes. And it's so, for him, it sucks that Jesus has hit the ground running because he's keeping him out of the team. And I'm not sure how you can fit Eddie and Jesus in, but Eddie might have been promised that he's going to start every Europa League group game. Maybe that's been the deal for him to get game time, and also the League Cup and FA Cup games as well. He'll probably start them.
I remember the days where Steven Gerrard was Liverpool's highest paid player on 90,000 a week, and now we're talking about 120,000 for Eddie Nketiah. Well, what's the world come to?
Yeah, well, look at.
Look, I've heard you defend Eddie Nketiah. I get it, and we don't know, but
it's inflation, mate. It's inflation. But look, let's see how things develop. At the moment, like I said, Arsenal is playing the best football, but more exciting than City's. City's maybe it's because we've watched City for so long and do the same thing for so long. Whereas with Arsenal, it's actually refreshing to see them play this way. So it's something new. But even so, they seem to be a lot more quicker. So It's just going to be interesting whether they can mimic those performances against the Liverpools, the Tottenhams, the Cities, the Chelseas, and the Uniteds, or whether they're going to, especially against Liverpool and City, whether they're going to take a more defensive approach, because right now they're playing on the front foot. So yeah, I want to see the tests on, when is it? I think it's September 4th. We go to Old Trafford. Trafford? Ugh, can't even say it. Trafford. Yeah, we go to Old Trafford, and it'll be interesting to see how United are going by that time and how we're going by that time. If we can go into that game undefeated, we could, hopefully we don't go in being complacent. But watching All or Nothing, it doesn't seem like Arteta's the type of coach to breed complacency. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how things will go, and especially with the top four race, like Liverpool currently being slightly out of it. United, we never sort of had them in for the top four. It's sort of ours to drop, I suppose. Like,
not yet. We're 3 games in. Relax, man.
No. Look, I'm not saying like, because the expectation was always that we should finish top four, and I think quite a number of people even wrote off Chelsea based on how they were going in pre-season and how they ended last year, and considering they lost like half the defense, a lot of people were writing off Chelsea. And like saying that they were going to finish 5th. Like it wasn't like a resounding 90% consensus. It was like, maybe like a 50-50, like Arsenal finished 4th, Tottenham 3rd, Chelsea 5th. Like, and that was what a lot of people were saying before the start of the season. I'm saying right now that, and I believe that at the start of the season that Arsenal have a very good chance at 3rd, because we look like we're playing better than Tottenham and Chelsea. But again, it's
why are you dropping?
Hmm?
Don't drop it, man. You're top of the league. You've won every game. Come on, 3rd. Why are we going for 3rd?
Yeah, but we haven't. Like we faced 2 bogey teams.
No,
I suppose.
I get what you're saying. We've got to see them when they're challenged against a team that's playing well. We don't know if United will be that team come that time. But after what we saw this morning, they probably will be. So to be seen with Arsenal in terms of those bigger games. But what we've seen so far is very encouraging.
Yes, I'll leave it at that. It's very, very encouraging. And the fact that it will only, I think the true test will be similar to Tottenham this weekend, where they and against Chelsea as well, where they played horribly. They were the second best team for the majority of the game, but they still managed to get a result. It will be interesting if Arsenal can pull out one of those performances against, like, we have Villa on August 31st, and I think we have Fulham at home, so we're expected to win that. Villa might be a little bit of a tough test because Villa have a decent team, but they're just not cohesive. But that's Villa at home as well. So I think, considering we're playing 2 games at home in a row, we're expected to win both of those before we go to United. So it'll be interesting to see when we play badly if we can still manage to get a result like what Tottenham have been doing.
Yeah. So, where are we off to next? Because unless you have more to say about Arsenal. But...
No. Like it's pretty much more of the same from like last week. Like they're playing well, they're getting the results, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to be beating. So there's nothing really much more to add. Like, all we can really talk about is individually the Jesus involvement for the first goal, which you mentioned. Like the way that he brought that ball down, like he shrugged. I can't remember who the defender was, but he outmuscled the defender, beat 3 or 4 defenders, and then played the ball through. Like, yeah, it was amazing from him, and also the Saliba goal. Like who knew he had that in his back pocket?
Yeah, let's ask him to do it. Let's ask him to do 10 more of them. I reckon he might pull one more out. That one was a little bit fluky for me, but it looked great because it was that goal that was right. The camera is right behind the ball.
Mm.
You gotta love those goals. So you could see him going in the whole time.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I don't know how you can say it was fluky because it's not like he mishit it or anything, and like it's not like it bobbled
No,
and
but
he
he's
hit
a
his shin or anything.
centre back. Yeah, but he's a centre back. That's not in his job description, and for me, he's not that kind of centre back either. There aren't any centre backs who you got to put your money on in that situation from there.
The only thing that I could probably say is that you know those the De Bruyne type crosses where like you try to just curl it in towards the back post and wait for someone to like latch onto it. Like it might have been something between that and a shot because he was sort of.
It was a shot. It was a great goal. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, don't ask him to do that too often.
It was a fluke. Did you see Zinchenko's reaction though?
No, I did. I missed that one.
Oh, it was absolutely hilarious. Like he just like he was just like shocked. It was almost as if like he saw a ghost. Yeah. That's
how you can tell.
Yeah, like
that's how you can tell. It's like, wow.
Yeah, like the whole team goes. Whole team goes and celebrates. Zinchenko just drops to his knees and like is holding his head and is in like complete shock. But yeah, like I'm excited to. I'm actually like I'm excited to see more and more games from Arsenal, and yeah, I want to onward and upward. So the next game I think we should get into. Hang on, let me just see. Well, the next game would be Leeds Chelsea, probably. Unless you want to talk about Brighton West Ham, like just briefly.
No, I haven't watched Brighton West Ham.
I haven't watched it. I only watched the second half.
I'm happy to see Brighton.
I only watched the second half of Leeds because I was barbecuing.
You missed the good half.
Yeah, I missed the good half, so I can't really speak much about their performance. But Chelsea looked very lackluster, at least in the second half, from what I saw. And yeah, I'll let you take the lead on Leeds Chelsea.
Yeah, I thought Chelsea were pretty disjointed, to be fair. Leeds looked good. They looked intense. They looked like a Jesse Marsch team, a Salzburg Jesse Marsch team when he was still there. Very much in terms of wanting to play in the transition, wanting to press, wanting to be in your face, and they did that really well. I was really surprised, though, because they pressed really narrow on Chelsea, and I was very surprised that Cucurella and Ruben Loftus-Cheek couldn't have more influence on this game, and Chelsea weren't able to get them on the ball and dictate play through them and push the press back. But Leeds were quite impressive. But I got to touch on this. It just frustrates me so much. But why is there such an epidemic about always having to play out from the back? And maybe epidemic is the wrong word to use.
Yeah, we could get banned off YouTube
in these times. But why has it infiltrated all of football in the last 10, 12 years? I mean, Edouard Mendy, what are you doing? But you're probably doing what your managers told you to do. But here's my whole thing. If you were good enough to play on the pitch, you wouldn't be in goal. There's a reason you're in goal. And now goalkeepers have got infinitely better with their feet overall. I'm not denying that. I'm not even saying that goalkeepers necessarily nowadays are bad footballers. Some of them are pretty good footballers, to be fair to them. But if you were good enough, you wouldn't be between the sticks. So you've got to know your place in that moment. If you're under pressure, get rid of the ball. Get rid of the ball. What are you doing taking someone on in your own 6-yard box? It's absolutely ridiculous from A, whether it be manager, if that's the precedent and that's what he absolutely wants no matter what, and B, from the player himself. I mean, come on, even if you have to give away a corner, it's better than giving away a goal. And it just frustrates me so much. If you've got a goalkeeper who could do it, and it's not taking over risk, then fine. But so much of the time, like I think back to Jose Mourinho's second Chelsea team, and when they won the league, and they used Ivanovic as a right back, and any sort of defensive set piece situation, it was all right. If we don't have space to play out, we're going to push him up the park, and we're going to get numbers around him and play the ball up to him. I remember even Carlo Ancelotti's first Real Madrid Champions League winning side. They would set up in their possession shape around a target, probably Ronaldo, or usually Ronaldo, might have even been Carvajal from right back, much in the Mourinho mould. And if we don't have the space and we don't have the time to play out from the back, we'll make sure we have the numbers around where we know the ball's going, and we'll play from there. What is wrong with that? Like, for me, even visually, I prefer watching that to playing out from the back under immense pressure. I can't understand it. Why are you putting generally your weakest footballers on the ball under pressure in situations where if they make a mistake, it's likely to cost you a goal? It blows my mind that we've seen it for so many years now. When the other option for me looks better and for me is more effective. Definitely more effective in not conceding goals from that crap. So, I don't know. Like, sure, if you've got time, play out from the back. Absolutely. What's the harm if you've got time and space to do it? But if you don't, why? And honestly, the first goal in this game was pivotal for me because Raheem Sterling had a chance early in the game, and that again leads into Chelsea's problems not being clinical in the box. But if they score that goal, there's every chance Chelsea just go on and at least not lose the game and probably win the game. But you're playing at Ellen Road. The place was frenzied because this is a derby. And Leeds were able to get momentum from their press, and then they go on and batter them 3-0. So Chelsea, it's a surprise result because I think we're all pretty impressed with Chelsea after last week against Tottenham. But they can't score, and then they made a stupid mistake at the back. The set-piece goal, I don't know if they can do much better. The set-piece is right on the money, and Rodrigo's header is really good. And then they concede one when they're pushing for it. So it just throws into question, what kind of top four race are we getting? And I'm sure the other result on the Sunday, which we'll discuss, also somewhat does that. Not really, because City we expect to be in top four. They'll be that's more of what pace will the title race be. But this top four race, it's looking very open because Tottenham have got good results, but they haven't looked good. Arsenal, like you say, they may be pushing their way above even that, but it is only 3 games in. Chelsea have lost a shocker here, and they have shown that they just don't have goals in their side. They did score 2 against Tottenham, but the way they played in that game, they should have been out of Tottenham's sight. And we've already touched on what Liverpool are doing. So all of a sudden, this sort of top 4 race maybe the picture starts to clear a little bit. Not in terms, because we're 3 games in, but in terms of the fact that Chelsea can put in a performance like this and can lose 3-0 at Leeds. I think it just shows you how tough the Premier League's going to be this season. That and the Newcastle City result as well.
Yeah, I think my missus, she said, like, what the hell's going on with the Premier League? Like, especially after like all the results that have happened. So like Liverpool has drawn, like before obviously they lost to United, but like they drew twice. Like Chelsea was losing lost to Leeds, and we'll get onto the City game, but they were losing 3-1 at one point as well. She's like, this seems like a really weird season. And like when she mentioned that, I was like, could this be sort of like the Leicester season? And like, this isn't me being hopeful as an Arsenal fan, but could this be the Leicester season where like Arsenal end up winning it, even though everyone was just writing them off, or like predicting that City and Liverpool win? But I don't think it's going to be that. Like just based off of one result with City and Newcastle, I don't think City are automatically just going to like drop 20 or 30 points the way the rest of the teams did in that Leicester winning season. But I don't know. What if it ends up being like one of those weird seasons where you just see like weird results, especially considering it's a World Cup year as well. And there's also like West Ham as well. I think they're winless thus far. Like they haven't even drawn a game. I think they're bottom. Yeah, like 3 losses. So like West Ham, who were top 4 challengers last year up until like the final 5 games or something, like even they've got off to a horrid start. So could it be a weird one of those weird sort of seasons where we see like some like maybe where possibly see a weird top 4, maybe Brighton get in the top 4. Yeah, like what do you think about that?
Nah, I can't see that. But I can see maybe the top team, maybe they're not being as clear a top 2. Maybe we'll see. It might just be City up the top when all said and done and no one near them. But you could definitely see the teams around that dropping a lot of points to other teams in the league because the Premier League is so strong. It has, for me, the best managers in the world, and you see that in the football. It also probably has the most chaotic football as well. The football played at the highest intensity, the most direct football probably. German football is pretty direct as well. But this leads itself to games where sort of the crowd, probably the second best crowds in Europe behind the Bundesliga. And if those crowds have an influence like that, like I felt they did for Leeds Chelsea. I thought Chelsea were a bit disjointed, but Leeds and the crowd were really up for the game. So I think you can see big teams probably losing at Leeds if they can put performances like that in. You can see the big teams being challenged by Newcastle every time they go out there. So yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of results. But to be fair, I think we've seen a lot of these results in previous seasons as well. I think we've seen there's always a point where those teams maybe not quite at the top 2 or the number 1 team, they sort of can go and like you think of that top 4 race between Arsenal, Chelsea, and was it Tottenham under Emery, or was it even us involved that season? But whichever season that was, those teams were constantly losing games against your Bournemouths and your I don't know, your whatever teams were around there. Newcastle's at the time, they were losing those games. They were dropping points there. It seemed like no one wanted that top 4. So we have seen it in the past, and we'll probably see it again this season. For those 2 factors, that maybe the top teams are not quite as solid as we thought, and those teams around them are at a higher level. Because so far there's been a lot of impressive teams below the top 6. I already went into how impressed I was with Wolves against Tottenham, Brighton. I mean, they're undefeated. Newcastle are undefeated. And then obviously Leeds, I was quite impressed with this performance as well. So there's 4 I've just rattled off. And when I see more Brentford obviously as well with the 4-0 win against United. So those teams are playing well against the supposed top teams as well.
Yeah, it could be very interesting to see if there's maybe a surprise package. Like I think even last year, Brighton got off to a very good start, and I think up until they were in that sort of top 4 hunt up until Christmas, and then they just fell off and finished mid-table. Wolves as well, they were in that top 4 hunt until I think they had that double header against Arsenal because of the COVID rescheduling. And then after that, after those 2 losses in a row, they just fell off. But they were considered like a potential top 4 challenger. So we just see a similar thing this year, where like up until Christmas I guess the World Cup, like the top 4 isn't your City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool. Maybe it's something different, like Newcastle might be in there, like you said. So it might be like City, Arsenal, Newcastle, and Brighton, perhaps, going into the World Cup. But then after the World Cup, when everyone's back, maybe that's when things, I guess, revert back to the mean, and you see, the same top 4 or slightly different top four to last season, but you obviously see those top six teams securing their top six positions, and then the mid-table teams start to fall off. So who knows, like how things could end up, but so far, like it's being it's started off as a very interesting season based on results.
Well, just on that World Cup point, if I was to see it going anyway at the moment, it would be more that one of those teams like a Newcastle or a Brighton makes a run later in the season because they sort of had a midpoint pre-season to have all their players together and to go through things again and work on things, whereas the top teams will have more players going to the World Cup. So that's just one to look for. But I guess with all the talk about these teams around them, we've got to move on to the later kickoff on Sunday, don't we? Really. And I'm guessing you watched this one, the City Newcastle game.
Yeah, probably the most exciting game that there was. I was gonna say, in terms of the quality of football, and this isn't me being biased, in terms of the quality of football, the Arsenal game, at least the first half of the Arsenal game, was the best game that I watched over the weekend. Until I watched Newcastle City, that was the most exciting game. And before we get into it, I want to make a mention. I saw this like towards the end of the game. How much does Eddie Howe look like Matt Ritchie?
He almost looks like his younger brother.
Yeah, dude. I'm like when he was bringing him on, I was like, is he bringing on his brother or something? Like but it doesn't look like they're too far separated. Like maybe like 5 or 6 years. Like because Eddie Howe's relatively young. I think he's like in his early 40s. I think.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying Eddie Howe looks like Matt Ritchie's younger brother.
But yeah, like how insane is it that like that they look so alike? And like I saw a meme. It's like when you want to bring yourself on in manager mode or something like that. But yeah, like it's insane. Like they're almost like doppelgangers, and like they play for the exact. Well, they don't play, but like yeah, one plays for the team that the other guy manages. Like yeah.
So you watched this game. So do you want me to go into it, or do you want to bring up anything that you noticed?
Look, all I'll say is like I was very impressed with Newcastle. Like they didn't take that typical approach of sitting back in a low block against City. Like they actually pressed City. They didn't really give them much chance to play, and there was a lot of instances where Newcastle actually got to like move the ball around and actually play with the ball rather than just purely hitting them on the counter whenever they won the ball back. Like they actually had build up play that they showcased. And after from memory, like when the first goal came in, I thought it was a little bit against the run of play when City scored, because I thought Newcastle were playing actually very well, and I think they had a couple of chances as well to score. And I thought that they were playing better, like City managed to bloody pull one out of the bag again, like sort of similar to the the Aston Villa game last year at the end of the season, where they went down and they just pulled, they managed to come back from behind, managed to overcome adversity, and I think they almost had a chance to win it at the end as well. I can't remember if it was Gundogan or Haaland that had an opportunity. I think Haaland even hit the post as well. But yeah, overall, the most exciting game from the weekend, and I thought Newcastle deserved to win that game. Like they showed enough to win it, but unfortunately, the City's experience and quality managed to, I guess, get them out of it. Like got them out of jail.
Yeah, quality being the big thing. I think you're definitely right. It was the most exciting game for a lot of different reasons. Just going into the game before touching on a few other things, I saw the first 10 minutes. I thought City were comfortably better, and I thought they were actually going to win the game pretty comfortably after Gundogan scored. Because I thought, and I may be wrong because I saw the flip side of this in the game as well. But City were doing their usual things, bringing the fullbacks inside, playing as central midfielders. Newcastle didn't quite fall into the trap in the same way West Ham did in terms of getting their wide players to go with the central midfielders. That instead they asked their central midfielders in Willock and Joelinton to step up onto Walker and Cancelo. And in the first 10 minutes in particular, that was leaving a lot of space in the pockets behind those two, in Willock and Joelinton. And Gundogan and De Bruyne were picking up the ball and looking across it and finding those spaces to be dangerous. And I thought that was probably Newcastle's worst period until late in the game, because after that, and this was the flip side, and look, City were architects of their own, they dug their own hole, really, so to say. They dug themselves into that 3-1. I thought Newcastle were fantastic, but I thought City were on top early and then they got sloppy. Mistouched a few balls. You don't see City players doing that. John Stones giving the ball away stupidly. We do see that because I don't really rate John Stones that highly anyway. But, when your team is doing that, obviously the other team at home is going to get a big push. So it's not like City were playing at their top level. But at the same time, Newcastle were forcing a lot of those mistakes. And when City start doing that, now all of a sudden you can see the flip side of Newcastle pushing their central midfielders on, because Newcastle now can get the ball back from these City mistakes, and now they have men in advanced areas. And it's kind of a game you're more akin to watching City v Liverpool. It kind of felt that way for a long part in the middle there, in terms of City were giving the ball away in those pockets or not finding players in those pockets. And now Newcastle have more numbers up the pitch, so that, yes, they can play on the ball, but when they do play direct, they're able to have numbers around there. They're able to make runs into channels. Kyle Walker had an absolute nightmare of a game, and they targeted him mercilessly, not only with Saint-Maximin, but with Joelinton as well in the air. And he was able to get a few flick-ons as well, which is allowed because Joelinton's already so high up the pitch, pressing on Walker. Now, when they win the ball back, even if it is further down the pitch, they have a quick out ball to Joelinton and they can get a 2-on-1 with him and Saint-Maximin against Walker. Saint-Maximin was played above his level in terms of end product. He obviously set up the first 2 goals. And that's what Newcastle needed, because for me, Saint-Maximin in particular, but him and Almiron, like, for what they offer to the game and the talent they have, they could almost be top players, but their end product lets them down terribly. They don't get enough goals, they don't get enough assists. So for Saint-Maximin to get those 2 assists, I know Almiron scored the goal, but I thought he suffered his same old problems. It was a pretty poorly taken goal, if there is such a thing, but he got a bit fortunate with that one.
Yeah, it was like but he still got something.
Yeah, exactly. He still got the goal, and Newcastle were fully deserving of that being 3-1 up, because, like you said, they took the game to the City. It looked more like a Liverpool v City game in terms of that. It wasn't Newcastle sitting back. It was vertical football. It was playing in spaces. It was winning your individual battles against the City players, which is so basic, but I thought they were doing that fantastically well. And, like the game reminded me of, I don't know if you remember it, but that Centurion Man City season where they went to Anfield and they were still undefeated, I think 17-18. And Liverpool just blitzed them. And Newcastle weren't quite at that level, but, that's a very high level to get to. But Liverpool blitzed them. They go, 4-0 up? Or 4-1 up after Sane equalised to make it 1-1. but then City's quality and City just make an opposition ground just shit themselves. Because I remember, I think before the corner that led to City's 3-2, the goal that brought them back into the game, I remember looking at the clock and thinking, 59 minutes. Wow, there's a long time left in this game. And then in a blink of an eye, in 4 minutes, and I almost felt it from the crowd and the players on the pitch for the Newcastle, that they almost thought exactly the same thing in that moment. And it just became, oh, wow. And then City's quality, De Bruyne's ball for Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne's ball for the cross, I thought maybe they could have dealt with it better, but Haaland always poaching, always on the move in the box. And that's what City do. They scare you into a result. It's like, yeah, we're 3-1 up on City, but unless there's like 1 minute left in the game, we still haven't won this game. And that's exactly how it played out. But yeah, like you said, a really fun game, really exciting game. Newcastle are just a really good team. I've got to say it at this point, because we saw the second half of last season and now we're seeing the start of this season. They're just a really good team, and if they can get San Maximan to that level week in, week out, and if they could get some more production from Almiron, for me, then they're a serious top 4 challenger. But they'll need that from those players, because like players like Joelinton and Guimaraes in particular have been fantastic. The Trippier free kick was great. Even just getting him into the club for where he's been and the experience and leadership he can bring. Nick Pope has been a revelation, and I'm sorry to say it, but on the evidence of the start of the season, although Ramsdale hasn't been bad, Nick Pope has been fantastic for me, and he's even showing that he's willing to come off his line a bit more than what you saw at Burnley, and the saves he's pulling off are top class for me. So he might be higher in that pecking. For me, I would put him as England's number 1, but I guess Southgate has the infatuation with Pickford. But yeah, really fun game, and there was just a couple of like sort of subplots that I wanted to touch on. There was 3 subplots, and I wanted to just pose them to you. Firstly, the Foden and Haaland dynamic. I'm not sure about it just yet. I think Foden maybe is a little bit threatened because he was the young player who was meant to be the big thing at City, and now he's got another young player who has stolen all the limelight since he's come. And there's already been 2 occasions this season where Foden, especially on the weekend for that in the Newcastle game, he had a really easy pass to Haaland in the middle of the goal, and he chose to shoot. And I think he did it against West Ham as well. So that little dynamic, look, it's just a little seed of doubt that I just have about that, because there's definitely, these footballers are ultra competitive. So when someone comes on your turf, even if they're there to help you and the team, you still can feel threatened by it. So I wonder if there's a little bit of that going on there. Bernardo Silva, that was interesting to see his body language and the way he played. He didn't look quite the same. I'm not saying he was off. He was pretty good, obviously scored the equaliser. But normally when I watch Bernardo Silva, he's absolutely everywhere on the pitch. Now, that might just be down to heat, but we know what's happened in terms of him probably wanting to go to Barcelona, and now it's not happening. We also know, well, how does Guardiola react to that? Well, the only thing that we've seen so far in terms of how he reacts to that is he stuck him out on the right-hand wing, which is not the position, but he's been playing Bernardo Silva recently, or regularly last season, and probably Bernardo Silva would probably prefer to play through the middle. So is there something going on there? Too early to say. That one's maybe me clutching at straws, but it's something that maybe could develop that we need to look at. And man, my spine was tingling with, and I'm so happy for it, with the whole just Newcastle being like invigorated by this team, because that City for so many years I feel has needed a team to get behind, because it would be such a good addition for the Premier League. And I think we're finally starting to see it, because that's a one club City. That's a City that wants to get behind its team, but In recent years, it hasn't really had much reason to. And what we're seeing in the last 6 or so months or whatever it is has been really encouraging and good for the league because it's really good to watch when a city like that gets behind its team. It's really fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I saw like pre-match, like the atmosphere at Newcastle. It looked absolutely electric, and I wouldn't mind seeing that on a Tuesday or Wednesday night in the Champions League. Not at Arsenal's expense though. Just to see that, like how, because it sort of reminded me of a little bit of a Borussia Dortmund atmosphere. I'm not sure if you get that same sort of vibe or not, but it sort of reminded me of that.
Yeah, and you can feel it through the screen. Whatever's coming out of there is special at the moment. So, for their sake, long may it continue.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just really quickly though, like, do you make anything of Guardiola not making any changes? Like the one change was Ake through injury, but he didn't. He made no subs other than that. Like, did you find that weird or?
Not really, because I didn't really make a note of it while I was watching the game. I thought
Because like you had Mahrez on the bench.
maybe if they didn't get the goals back as quickly as they did, he probably would have been forced to make changes. But once they get the 2 goals back, Newcastle didn't completely sit back after that. To their credit, but if there was one team more likely to win it, you'd say it'd be City. But looking back at it, like someone like a Mahrez.
Or
definitely.
Or like an Alvarez, because but the thing is, like, Guardiola did it last year against Palace as well. Like I think in that 0-0 draw, he made no changes, so it was the same 11 played 90 minutes. So he has it in him to do it.
Yeah, it's something, and I guess maybe my guess is that in his position, because City are normally the dominant team in any game, I imagine that's hard for a manager to change up because you're just thinking, well, if we keep playing the same way, it's a matter of time before we make that breakthrough. So from the outside looking in, that's probably the best guess that I could take at why he has that in him.
Yeah, I suppose so. I found it a little bit interesting, but like I said, he has it in him to not make any subs. Do you have any, before we sign off, do you have any other talking points from the weekend about any other results, either in the Premier League or around Europe? I think there was.
I guess we could.
I think that was the Borussia Dortmund loss. I didn't. I didn't watch the game, but I heard about it.
I watched the game. I didn't intend. It wasn't as intently as I watched some other games, just because I don't think Dortmund are very good. They were lucky to be 2-0 up, to be fair. Especially in the second half, I thought Bremen were overrunning them, and then they conceded a sucker punch. But full credit, in a crazy, 6 or so minutes of football, Bremen completely turn it around at Dortmund. And Leipzig also lose away at Union Berlin. I thought Leipzig, for me, I'd compare them to a Tottenham in the Premier League, but not as good because they don't have Son and Kane. But they do have a pretty good front three. I mean, in Danny Olmo, Christopher and Nkunku, who I think is really good, and Timo Werner being back at the club, and him obviously being more at home back at Leipzig and back in German football. But what's behind them isn't very good, and it's not able to keep out the goals, so they lose on the road. And all it points to is that this is going to be a cakewalk for Bayern Munich because they win 7-0 at Bochum, get some revenge on what happened there last season. And yeah, it's looking like a cakewalk because Nagelsmann was even able to take their best player of the season so far, Musiala, out of the team, bring in Leroy Sané, bring in Kingsley Coman in for Serge Gnabry, and, well, it's like no one's left. Alphonso Davies didn't even play, but that doesn't matter because you just bring in De Ligt and put Lucas Hernandez at left back. So, yeah, it's looking very easy for them. And when I talk about Bayern, the team that I instantly go to is PSG because I put them sort of in the same bracket. They're going to rump to their leagues. They're miles better than anything else in their league. And the PSG one was interesting. I don't know if you saw much of it, but you know how we were already talking about the Mbappe-Neymar dynamic? Well, it was pretty clear that someone, if not both of them, made it a point that their body language towards each other was going to be very good. And it was. And they looked like good teammates. Mbappe, here's the scary thing for me with Mbappe. In this game against Lille, and Lille are one of the better teams in Ligue 1. Now, you can say that's because Ligue 1's shit, or you can say PSG are just that good. It's a bit of both for me. But Mbappe in this game tried to play the facilitator, and he still scored a hat-trick. I just think that guy's on another level. And this, I mean, if he continues on this trajectory and then, does something good, like win a Champions League for PSG and then leaves on his own accord and goes and plays in a better league, the sky is the limit for this guy in the career. And I literally mean that. He can be one of the best that we've ever seen because he's already building a resume that says that he comfortably could be. And he's got a lot of World Cups up his sleeve. He's got a lot of time to still improve. And he's got a lot of time to safeguard himself for when he loses that pace by adding the cleverness and the leadership and the experience. And it was interesting because, like his body language and their body language towards each other, Neymar and Mbappe, I think that's a very positive sign for PSG because Mbappe was very grumpy. I think it's well documented in his last game. But he looks to rectify that straight away. So if he can continue that and continue showing that he can be a leader at 22, and if Neymar can continue showing that he wants to be there and he wants to play football and he wants to win trophies, then this PSG team is scary in the Champions League. But obviously, we've litigated that. It remains to be seen. Atletico in Spain.
Just quickly, on the PSG point, I heard something that apparently Sergio Ramos mediated a reconciliation between Neymar and Mbappe, and I guess when you have Ramos as
exactly
as the muscle between them, then you better fly straight.
Yeah, and what a great sort of role model for Mbappe and even Neymar to have in Sergio Ramos, who is still playing at an extremely high level himself as well. So, I'm impressed with what I've seen in PSG in terms of it's not about the football for them because they'll beat every team in France. It's about the cohesion, and it looks like they're taking what they need to take to heart and improving on it. So, but we're only 3 games in, so it's got to continue. If we just go over to Spain quickly as well, the Lewandowski era at Barca starts. He didn't even take him a minute to score at Sociedad. But I wasn't too impressed with Barcelona overall in this game. I think Xavi has a bit of a conundrum with having Lewandowski in the team because his formation to me told me that he feels he needs someone playing off Lewandowski because Lewandowski doesn't offer enough in the link-up and the build-up play. So he had Ferran Torres sort of playing it a little bit off him, and then Dembele and Keita on the sort of as wing-backs, but more wingers more than anything. It was an ultra-attacking formation. I couldn't believe he was playing Eric Garcia as the sort of left-sided centre-back, and he got exposed for Sociedad's goal. And no Busquets in the team. De Jong and Pedri were sort of running the midfield with Gavi a little bit more advanced. So has Xavi already gotten to the point where he says, all right, we're just going to beat teams by scoring more than them. We're going to load the team with attacking talent, and that's how we're going to try and play. It'll be interesting to see because obviously you don't really normally see tactical changes from the first game to the second game when you didn't lose the first game. So, not like this, big, wide sweeping sort of systematic changes like that. So Barcelona, as always, as we've seen all summer, they're going to be interesting to follow their developments. And one team who we haven't touched on in terms of maybe a potential title challenge. It depends on what level Real Madrid and Barcelona can reach. But Villarreal, they went to the Metropolitano and won 2-0. And look, on another day, Atletico probably could have gotten away with a draw, but you can't begrudge Villarreal getting a win. And they've kept much of the same team together from last year's deep Champions League run. I think they've only lost Estupiñán at left back. Emery's got a good team there. They know their roles. They play well in possession of the ball. They can play against the ball. Gerard Moreno's a really good striker. Lo Celso looks like a good player. Parejo's been good in La Liga for ages now. So, and they have no European. Well, I think they might have qualified for Conference League or something like that. But if it's a big if, because Real Madrid need to hit not a low, but they need to not hit their heights. But so far so good. 2 wins from 2, an impressive one at Atletico, which kind of told me that Atletico aren't going to be there or thereabouts, because they looked really abject. They just João Felix. We talked about it. He needed to go to the next level. I still haven't seen it yet, but we're 2 games in, so look, I say that a lot at the start of the season, but that is what it is. And not much to say from Serie A, but I think that's just going to be a fun title race for the whole season, because I think that's probably the most open league in Europe.
Yeah, I need to start watching more of the other leagues. How I told you like last week that that I have too much football to watch, and it almost feels like once I get through like with the Premier League, with the games that I can watch, then I'm sort of like footballed out, and like I need to take a break, and then it's a little bit overwhelming, and I'll obviously watch the big games once those fixtures do come about, but like I guess watching like I guess Villarreal Atletico is a sort of big game, considering Villarreal were semi-finalists of the Champions League last year. But like watching the other 2 games, Celta Vigo versus Real and Barca.
That was a good game.
Barca versus Sociedad. Yeah, like I'll probably just watch the highlights of that.
Your boy scored a worldie.
Yeah. Well,
Luka Modric scored the go-ahead goal. Just watch. Do you get the mini matches?
No. Because this is actually like good. This is live. This is pretty much like Foxtel. So I just get the live games. But I think they do like a match day review that goes for like an hour, and then like they sort of show a little bit extended highlights. So instead of showing just the goals, they show maybe like instead of showing like 3 minutes of goals, they show like 5 to 10 minutes of highlights. I think they do that from what I've seen.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
and to be fair, like you'll know who to watch after a few more weeks of the season, because the table will take place. And see, I'm talking about a team like Villarreal, but maybe they drop off in the next couple of weeks, and there's no point watching them in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think once the table takes place, then you'll have a better idea of who to tune into and watch.
Yeah, but we'll see within a couple of weeks how things develop. And I think does Champions League start in like 2 weeks' time or something? Because it's already end of August pretty much.
Yeah, it should be soon.
Yeah, I think they're finishing off the qualifiers this week, the last round of qualifiers. So see who gets in. Hopefully Dinamo can win that one. I think they lost 2-1 away to some Norwegian team last week. So they're playing tomorrow. So hopefully they can win that, and maybe I can go to some Champions League games if they manage to qualify.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All good.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap from us today. We've discussed in length the Premier League as we usually do. Not really too much going on with the rest of the leagues. No offense to them, but we'll try to get onto them as some more interesting games come up, and I guess as the leagues develop. But and hopefully for the next pod as well, you will be able to see our faces once we overcome the technical difficulties. So yeah, thanks for tuning in now. So thanks for coming, and bye for now.